Welcome to the Plain Books Podcast. Today, we're diving into a concept that, honestly, it feels timeless, doesn't it? This powerful idea that's resonated for, well, generations.
Absolutely.
The notion that our thoughts, they aren't just these fleeting little sparks in our brain. They are, in fact, things.
Real things.
Tangible, almost.
Exactly. And not just any things, but incredibly potent forces, especially when you combine them with a really clear, unwavering purpose and this burning desire for them to actually show up in your life, in your reality.
It sounds almost mystical sometimes, I think.
It really does. But our deep dive today is going to unpack just how grounded this whole principle is. It's based on the documented experiences, the real lives of some of history's most successful people.
Yeah, and for centuries, people have been looking for these paths, haven't they? The secret sauce to success, whether that's, making money, hitting peak performance, or just finding that deep sense of contentment.
And what's really fascinating as we kind of get into this is how often the answers aren't in the latest fads or some quick hack. They're in these foundational, truly timeless principles.
Right. Bedrock stuff.
Yeah, deep truths about human potential that they work.
Yeah,
Across different times, different cultures, different fields. It's pretty remarkable.
absolutely. So, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today, we are plunging headfirst into a work that many consider genuinely transformative. We're talking about the foundational principles drawn from Napoleon Hill's classic, Think and Grow Rich.
A big one.
Oh, yeah. And if you've heard of it, or maybe even tried reading it, you know this isn't some casual beach read you just breeze through.
Not at all.
Hill himself, and actually Dr. Miller Reese Hutchison, who was, interestingly, Thomas Edison's longtime associate. They both emphatically called this book a textbook on individual achievement.
High praise, especially coming from Edison circles.
Right. It's this philosophy that was meticulously pulled together from analyzing, hundreds of America's most successful men and women. It's distilled into a blueprint that's really designed to genuinely change your life. It's a book that asks for your attention, your thought, and definitely your action.
Precisely. And Dr. Hutchison, he wasn't just saying, yeah, give it a read. He passionately urged that it be studied, digested, and meditated upon.
Wow.
He even suggested a method, like read just one chapter a night. Underline what hits you. Go back to those parts again and again.
So really absorb it.
Exactly. And this deep dive today, that's our aim, to help you absorb its rich contents, not just intellectually, like memorizing facts, but to really internalize these principles, make them your own, and crucially, start applying them.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the whole landscape of self-help, this book stands out. It's often called the shortest dependable philosophy of individual achievement ever presented. It's all about organizing knowledge, using it for useful service, and then getting compensated fairly without wasting time.
Our mission today, then, is to really unpack these timeless principles. We'll look at some of the surprising facts, some compelling stories that back them up. But most importantly, we want to show you, our listener, how these insights can directly apply to your life right now.
Yeah.
The book itself makes some pretty bold promises, like helping you tap into new sources of knowledge in your own mind. It even claims to uncover the secret formula by which Andrew Carnegie acquired his huge fortune.
And we're going to dig into that secret.
We are definitely going to explore that. It's really promising transformation, not just handing you information.
And it's so crucial to get this. The book was not written to entertain. Its single profound purpose is empowerment.
Right.
It gives what Hill calls complete instructions on how to sell your personal services, which is a vital skill, honestly, no matter where you are in your career.
Often overlooked.
Totally. And beyond that, it offers a perfect system of self-analysis, a way to really uncover what hidden barriers or maybe limiting beliefs might be holding you back from what Hill calls the big money. But its ultimate promise, it goes way beyond just cash.
Yeah.
It's a blueprint for a changed life, one that leads to harmony, deeper understanding, and the accumulation of material riches and abundance.
Okay.
So this brings up a really big personal question for all of us, doesn't it? What do you truly want most from life? Is it financial freedom, recognition, power, contentment, growth, peace of mind, happiness?
Could be any of those or a mix.
Exactly. And this philosophy, at its core, it aims to give you the framework to achieve a definite goal, whatever that goal genuinely is for you.
Okay, so let's kick off this journey into achievement with the very first step, arguably the most fundamental one, desire.
The starting point.
Exactly. And the book is crystal clear here. This isn't just, a casual wish or a passing thought or hoping something happens.
Wow.
We're talking about a keen, pulsating desire, something that really lights a fire inside you, something that takes precedence. It's presented as the absolute starting point for all achievement.
Right. You can wish for things passively, but desire demands action.
So what's the real difference there, in Hill's view, between just wishing and having that deep desire?
That's such a critical distinction the book hammers home. A wish is, well, it's passive, isn't it? Like tossing a coin in a fountain and hoping.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right?
Right. But a desire, as Hill defines it, it's active. It's this powerful impulse of thought that doesn't just hope to become real, it demands it. It's like this internal furnace that forces you to move, to seek, to keep going no matter what. And the intensity of that desire that's directly linked to how much energy you'll actually put into making it happen.
And there's maybe no better story to illustrate this intensity than the one about Edwin C. Barnes and Thomas Edison.
A classic.
Yeah. Barnes was this guy who, quite literally, thought his way into a business partnership with the great inventor.
Yeah.
And just consider where he started. Basically, no money, very little formal education, zero influential connections.
Nothing on paper, really.
Right. But what he did have was this one single-minded, unwavering, burning desire to become Edison's business associate. Not just an employee, specifically an associate. That detail feels really important, doesn't it? He wasn't after a paycheck. He wanted a partnership.
And what's really fascinating, just how definite his desire was. He wasn't vaguely hoping for, some entry-level gig at Edison's lab.
Right.
He gets himself to Orange, New Jersey, practically broke, doesn't know Edison from Adam. And he's willing to take on menial work, super low-level stuff, just to be near Edison, just to get a foot in the door, to kind of display his merchandise, which was really just himself and his relentless belief.
Yeah, his potential.
Exactly. And the book says months went by. Apparently nothing happened outwardly to move him closer to that goal, but something huge was happening inside Barnes's head. He was constantly intensifying his desire, letting it grow into this all-consuming obsession that fueled everything he did, even the small stuff.
And here's where it gets really, really interesting, and maybe a little uncomfortable for some folks, because it challenges our need for safety nets. The book says Barnes burned all bridges behind him. He didn't say, well, try to get Edison to hire me, and if that doesn't work, I'll, go try plan B. His mindset was absolute. I will see Edison and put him on notice that I have come to go into business with him. That's a profound level of commitment. Almost sounds reckless.
That phrase, burned all bridges, it's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about cutting off any possibility of retreat. Now, for you listening, this doesn't necessarily mean quit your job tomorrow with no savings.
Right, maybe not literally burn bridges.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But it's about creating a mental state of total commitment. The book's point is, by systematically removing any escape routes in your mind, you basically force your subconscious to find a way forward. Because there's no going back.
It's like a psychological hack. It taps into our deepest survival instincts, our problem-solving abilities, and channels everything towards that one definite goal. Plan B just becomes irrelevant. Only Plan A exists. Succeed. It forces a level of resourcefulness you might not otherwise find.
And the result of this, well, frankly, extraordinary commitment. Just a few years later, Edwin C. Barnes was, in fact, Edison's business partner. He was heading up the sales of the Edison dictating machine all across the country.
Amazing outcome.
Totally. And people saw his success and they envied his break, right? Called it luck. But they rarely bothered to actually investigate the cause of his success, which was that initial, intense desire fueled every single day and backed up by relentless, unwavering persistence. It really shows you need to trace results back to their true source.
Yeah, the root cause, not just the surface effect.
So from that really visceral idea of desire, we pivot to the second crucial step, faith.
The book describes faith not as just, blind belief, but as the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. It's not just a nice to have. It's presented as the starting point of all accumulation of riches. Now, for a lot of people, faith can sound kind of abstract, maybe even religious. How does Hill define it here in a practical way for achieving, say, material goals?
This is where it gets really practical. Faith, in this specific context, is defined very clearly as a state of mind which may be induced or created by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion.
Okay, so it's something you actively build.
Exactly. It's not passive hope, it's actively cultivating belief. The core idea here is that all thoughts which have been emotionalized, given feeling, and mixed with faith begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent or counterpart.
Wow. So your beliefs, especially the ones you feel strongly about, directly impact reality.
That's the claim. Your beliefs, charged up with strong emotion, have a direct, tangible impact on the reality you end up creating. It's like the emotional fuel that turns your desire into actual action.
To really drive this home, Napoleon Hill shares this incredibly personal, really moving story about his own son, Blair.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Blair was born without the ability to hear. And Hill's desire, his unshakable faith that his son would one day hear and speak, became this total obsession for him. He just refused to accept the doctor's opinions as final.
And that brings up a really important question for all of us, doesn't it? How do we refuse to accept what nature, or maybe just circumstances, hands us as like an insurmountable problem or a final limitation?
Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, Hill clung to this profound idea that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage.
Okay, so looking for the upside and the downside.
Exactly. And he describes years of just persistent, probably often heartbreaking effort, constantly communicating this unwavering desire to his son, trying to instill in the child this deep belief that, against all odds, he would hear and speak. Hill literally says he pushed reason aside. He chose belief over rational expectation. He wasn't just hoping, he was actively trying to shape his son's belief system.
And the outcome. It was truly incredible, a real testament to this principle. His son experienced what Hill called a changed world after finally getting a hearing device that actually worked for him.
Must have been unbelievable.
Imagine, he calls his mother, hears her voice perfectly for the first time, hears his professors, the radio, movies. This whole world of sound just opened up, and his ecstatic letter to the company that made the hearing aid, it led to an invitation to their factory. And while talking to the chief engineer there, boom, an idea flashed into his mind.
An inspiration.
Totally. A stroke of genius about how to turn his own handicap into a genuine asset, a way to help potentially thousands of other people.
That story just illustrates the principle so perfectly, doesn't it? You have this unwavering desire packed with deep emotion and unshakable faith. It pushed past conventional reason, inspired action, and then a solution, this unexpected opportunity. It wasn't just found, it was created.
Right.
His handicap wasn't just overcome, it was literally transmuted, turned into an asset that ended up paying dividends in both money and happiness to thousands as he helped improve devices and support others. It's such a powerful lesson in reframing challenges.
And the book is just full of these kinds of stories that really hammer home the power of faith and desire, like the story of Madame Schumann-Heink.
The opera singer.
Yeah, world-renowned opera singer. But early on, she faced this absolutely crushing rejection. The director of the Vienna Court Opera told her straight up, and this is a quote, "With such a face and with no personality at all, how can you ever expect to succeed in opera? My good child, give up the idea. Buy a sewing machine and go to work. You can never be a singer."
Ouch. Imagine hearing that from someone in authority.
Yeah.
Devastating.
Right. But what's fascinating is how her burning desire, which the book says had truly assumed the proportion of an obsession, just allowed her to completely ignore that definitive never.
She just refused to accept it.
Totally. She proved through sheer willpower and this unyielding belief in her own purpose that never is a long time. Her inner conviction that faith in her success, it just overrode what seemed like an absolute unchangeable reality. It really speaks to our capacity to redefine what's possible for ourselves.
It really does.
And it's not just about these huge public successes either. There's this poignant story about a business associate of Hill's who got incredibly sick, emaciated, looked like he was on death's door. Doctors basically said there was no chance, but this guy, right before they wheeled him into surgery, just feebly whispers to Hill, "Do not be disturbed, Chief. I will be out of here in a few days."
Wow. And did he?
He did.
Yeah.
His physician later confirmed it was almost miraculous, said flat out, nothing but his own desire to live saved him. He never would have pulled through if he had not refused to accept the possibility of death.
That connects so directly to this primal power of faith and desire, doesn't it? Yeah. Overcoming even extreme physical stuff, life or death situations. It suggests this incredible, powerful mind-body connection where our will can actually defy medical expectations.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing, really. So, okay, if this kind of unwavering faith is so critical, how do you actually get it? How do you build it?
Well, the book suggests it's like developing any habit, really. primarily through voluntary suggestion. It claims that the mind comes, finally, to take on the nature of the influences which dominate it.
Meaning we have a direct hand in shaping our own mental environment.
Exactly. It's a core principle of mental discipline. You are ultimately responsible for the mental food you feed yourself.
Mm.
The advice is pretty direct. You have to actively encourage the positive emotions as dominating forces of your mind and discourage and eliminate negative emotions. So a mind that's consistently filled with positive emotions naturally becomes, as Hill puts it, a favorable abode for the state of mind known as faith. It becomes more receptive to positive, constructive ideas. It's about consciously designing your inner world.
And then there's this really magnetic idea, something thinkers have pondered for ages. Thoughts which are mixed with any of the feelings of emotions constitute a magnetic force which attracts from the vibrations of the ether other similar or related thoughts.
Right, like attracts, like on a thought level.
Yeah, like planting a specific seed that just naturally draws other seeds of its kind and then they multiply, growing stronger together. It suggests this vibrational alignment almost, drawing things towards you.
And what that means, practically speaking, is that your dominant thoughts, the ones you really dwell on, the ones you charge up with emotion and feeling, they act like powerful beacons.
Look.
They attract their relative, so to speak, from this vast energetic field around us. These related thoughts, ideas, maybe even opportunities, they then grow and amplify in your mind until they become your dominating, motivating master. It really highlights this incredible, almost alchemical power of focusing intensely on what you want with deep feeling, literally drawing your reality closer.
All right, so we've laid down those foundational pillars, that burning desire and unwavering faith. Now let's get into the more, shall we say, practical tools for making things happen. We start with the third step, auto-suggestion.
Mm-hmm. The self-programming part.
Exactly. The book calls this the medium for influencing the subconscious mind, and even goes so far as saying it's the keystone to the arch of this philosophy. That's pretty significant. So how does this self-influence actually work? What are the specific steps Hill gives us?
Okay, so auto-suggestion at its core is about deliberately feeding your subconscious specific emotionally charged instructions, like programming software.
Okay.
And the book lays out 6 very definite practical steps specifically for turning desire into money, which is a key application here. First, you have to fix in your mind the exact amount of money you want. No vagueness allowed.
Be specific. Got it.
Second, determine exactly what you intend to give in return. Because, life and business, they run on exchange. There's no free lunch.
Fair enough. What else?
Third, set a definite date for when you intend to have this money. Fourth, create a definite plan to get it. And then this is crucial, start immediately, even if it's a tiny step.
Don't wait.
Don't wait. Fifth, write down the desire, the amount, the date, the plan, write it all out clearly. Then read it aloud twice a day, right before bed and right when you wake up.
Okay, repetition.
And finally, sixth, as you're reading this statement, you have to visualize yourself already having the money.
Yeah.
You need to really feel the emotion of having achieved it.
Okay, and here's that crucial part, the nuance that Hill just keeps emphasizing, right? The mere reading of the words is of no consequence unless you mix emotion or feeling with your words.
Absolutely critical.
It's not just repeating words like a robot. It's about creating what he calls a money consciousness, where your mind is just so completely saturated with the desire for wealth that you literally feel like you already have it. That emotional charge, that depth of feeling, that's what activates the subconscious. Without it, the words are just empty.
Exactly right. The subconscious mind, as the book explains it, is incredibly powerful. It takes any order you give it with absolute faith and starts working to translate it into physical reality using the most practical means it can find. You can basically play a perfectly legitimate trick on your subconscious by genuinely believing what you're visualizing and affirming.
Interesting. Like fooling yourself into success.
In a way, yeah. But the text really emphasizes that perfection will come through practice. It cannot come by merely reading instructions. This isn't just theory. It's about consistent, dedicated mental training. It's a skill you build up through daily, diligent work.
But there's a scary flip side to this power, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
The book starkly reminds us the subconscious makes no distinction between constructive and destructive thought impulses. It can turn fear into reality just as easily as it turns courage or faith into reality. It doesn't judge, It just executes.
Right, it's an impartial tool.
And the book gives this chilling example of Joseph Grant, a bank official who basically committed what Hill calls mental suicide.
Yeah, that story is intense.
He lost a load of the bank's money gambling. An audit was coming. He locks himself in a hotel room just repeating, "My God, this will kill me. I cannot stand the disgrace," over and over. And tragically, within a short time, he was dead. Doctors confirmed it was like his mind just shut down his body.
It's a really potent, if extreme, warning about the terrifying power of negative autosuggestion and how critical mental self-control really is.
Definitely makes you want to watch your thoughts. Okay, so from that subtle power of autosuggestion, we move to step 4, specialized knowledge. The book says there are 2 kinds, general and specialized. And then it hits you with this punchy, almost provocative statement. General knowledge, no matter how great in quantity or variety it may be, is of but little use in the accumulation of money.
That could seem counterintuitive, right? Especially today when we value knowing a little about everything.
Totally. So what does Hill mean by this distinction? Why isn't general knowledge that useful for getting rich?
This is such a critical point, and it trips a lot of people up. Hill says knowledge is only potential power. It just sits there, latent, until you activate it.
Okay.
It only becomes actual power when it's organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. This, he argues, is the missing link, often overlooked, especially in traditional education. Schools are often great at filling our heads with loads of general info.
Facts and figures.
Exactly. But they rarely teach us how to organize it, how to convert it, how to use it for practical purposes, especially for making money. It's like the difference between knowing about woodworking tools and actually knowing how to build a solid table.
That makes sense. And the classic example is Henry Ford, right?
Yeah, perfect example. Less than the 6th grade education, as you mentioned. And during that famous court case, a lawyer tried to make him look ignorant by asking him random trivia questions. Who was Benedict Arnold? How many soldiers did the British send over in 1776? Stuff like that.
Trying to expose his lack of formal schooling.
Right. But Ford's response was just brilliant and so practical. He basically said, look, if I really wanted to answer that silly question, I've got a row of buttons on my desk. I push the right button, and I can summon people who can answer any question I need answered about my business. Now, why, he asked, should I clutter my mind with general knowledge just to answer questions when I have experts around me who can supply any knowledge I require?
Boom. Mic drop.
Pretty much. It perfectly highlights the power of knowing how to acquire and use specialized knowledge through others, rather than feeling you have to know everything yourself. It's about leveraging expertise.
This really speaks to the importance of continuous learning, but also deep specialization, doesn't it? Especially in what the book called a changed world, and that was back in the 30s.
Absolutely. Even then, people like Robert P. Moore at Columbia University were pushing for things like apprenticeships, urging students to specialize early, recognizing that the world demanded experts.
So it's not just about a degree, it's ongoing practical application.
Exactly. It's a lifelong commitment to seeking, acquiring, and applying highly specialized knowledge. Think about that story of the unemployed salesman during the Depression.
Right, the bookkeeping on wheels guy.
Yeah, lost his job, could have given up. But instead, he takes a special accounting course, learns about the latest equipment, and then combines that specialized knowledge plus imagination to create a whole new business model, serving over 100 small businesses from his car, basically.
He didn't wait for a job opening, he created his own niche.
Precisely. Born out of necessity, but it became a new profession.
It just shows how practical guidance in marketing your unique skills can lead to huge success, even when times are tough. And there's that other amazing story, the woman who helped her son get a job.
Oh yeah, the 50-page plan.
Right. Her son was a brilliant college grad but struggling. She didn't just say, send out more resumes. She created this incredibly detailed personal service sales plan for him, like a legal brief.
It wasn't just a list of qualifications.
No, it outlined his specific skills, the exact job he wanted, and crucially, how he would add massive value in that role, even suggesting strategies for the employer.
And the result?
He got the job at the salary he wanted on the first interview. Started as a junior exec.
No.
The book says, doing a thing well never is trouble. And that detailed plan saved him probably no less than 10 years of time compared to just starting at the bottom and hoping to climb.
That's a powerful argument for strategic effort over just passive job searching.
And that whole starting at the bottom idea is something the book really pushes back against, isn't it? Says it can kill off ambition.
Yeah. Hill argues the view from the bottom isn't usually inspiring, and it's easy to get stuck in a rut, just accepting your situation, instead of aiming higher. It challenges that common advice.
Like with Dan Halpin.
Exactly. Started in a sales job he hated, but refused to compromise with life. He was inspired by associating with Knute Rockne, the famous coach.
The win one for the Gipper guy.
That's the one. Rockne instilled this relentless desire to excel. So Halpin aims higher, moves up quickly, assistant sales manager, then vice president within 6 months.
Incredible rise.
And the book credits his refusing to compromise with life by accepting and keeping a job he did not want. And importantly, that close association with Rockne, someone who refused to settle, was an asset that can never be measured in terms of money. It shows the huge impact of who you surround yourself with.
Which leads us beautifully into the fifth step, imagination. The book calls it the workshop of the mind. Such a great phrase.
It really is.
And Hill breaks it down into two types, right? Synthetic and creative.
Yeah. Synthetic imagination is basically rearranging old ideas, concepts, plans into new combinations, like putting existing puzzle pieces together in a new way.
Okay, using what's already there.
Right. But creative imagination, that's described as the link to what Hill calls infinite intelligence. It's the source of those hunches, those inspirations, those sudden flashes of insight that seem to come out of nowhere. The truly original ideas.
That's where the real magic happens, maybe.
That's where desires start taking shape as actual plans. Think about it, the world we live in, all the technology, society itself, it was built by practical dreamers who dared to use their imagination.
Like who?
Well, Henry Ford, envisioning a horseless carriage for everyone, and now cars built the entire Earth. Thomas Edison, dreaming of an electric light, pushing through 10,000 failures until it lit up the world. Whelan, dreaming up a chain of cigar stores. Lincoln, dreaming of freedom. The Wright brothers, dreaming of flight when everyone said it was impossible. Marconi, dreaming of wireless communication. People thought he was nuts. The book says it so powerfully. Dreams are the seedlings of reality, where it all begins.
It's also really striking how often adversity seems to fuel imagination.
Isn't it? The book points to John Bunyan writing Pilgrim's Progress in prison. O. Henry discovering his literary genius while incarcerated after some misfortune. Charles Dickens' greatest works often came after personal tragedy.
It's a pattern.
Yeah. Being forced, through misfortune, to become acquainted with his other self and to use his imagination, he discovered himself to be a great author. It's like when our usual paths get blocked, our creative side has to find a new way, and sometimes it finds something amazing.
It makes you think about how we can maybe transmute even our strongest negative emotions, despair, anger, into constructive dreams.
Exactly. Hill even suggested the Great Depression, despite all the suffering, actually taught people humility, tolerance, and open-mindedness, making the world kind of fertile ground for new pioneers and dreamers to rebuild things in new ways. Even the toughest times can forge creative power.
So, the book throws down a challenge directly to you, the listener. Start right now. Put your imagination to work on the building of a plan to turn your biggest desire into reality, whether it's money or something else.
And crucially, write it down.
Right. Reduce your plan to writing. That physical act helps give concrete form to the intangible desire. It's that first step from just thinking to actually manifesting.
And this ties back to that fundamental idea of energy. Desire is a thought impulse, right? A form of energy. Hill even says it's the same stuff that nature used in creating this earth and every material form in the universe.
Wow, that's a big statement.
It is. But the idea is you're trying to align yourself with nature's creative laws by working to turn your desire into its physical or monetary equivalent. You're tapping into that universal creative energy with your own focused thought. It's a powerful way to look at practical achievement.
Okay, we've covered the inner game. Desire, faith, autosuggestion, imagination. Now, how do we translate those imaginative plans into solid reality? That brings us to step 6, organized planning. This is where things get really tangible, the crystallization of desire into action. But what does organized really mean here?
This is where the huge concept of the mastermind principle really comes into focus. It's a cornerstone of Hill's whole philosophy.
Right, the mastermind. Heard a lot about that.
Yeah, and the book lays out 4 key steps for effective planning using a mastermind group. First, you need to ally yourself with people whose skills, knowledge, influence you actually need to carry out your plan. Be strategic about who you bring in.
Okay, choose your team wisely.
Exactly. Second, you have to be crystal clear on what advantages or benefits you can offer them in return for their help, because it's a two-way street. Nobody works forever for nothing. It has to be reciprocal.
Makes sense. What else?
Third, you need to meet with his group regularly, at least twice a week, maybe more, until the plan is really perfected and ready to go. Consistent collaboration. And fourth, and this is maybe the most crucial part, you must maintain perfect harmony with every single member. The mastermind literally cannot function without that synergy, that harmonious interaction. Any friction or serious disagreement basically breaks the connection.
That perfect harmony point feels really vital because, as the book points out, no individual has sufficient experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure the accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people.
Exactly. It shatters that myth of the lone genius pulling everything off by themselves. You just need those different perspectives, those specialized skills, that collective energy, all working together smoothly. It's collaboration elevated.
And this leads to another really important point about planning. What if your first plan fails?
Ah, yes. The book is very clear. If the first plan doesn't work, you must replace it with a new plan. Failure of a plan is not failure of the goal. Temporary defeat is not permanent failure. That is a fundamental distinction.
Okay, don't give up on the goal, just adjust the strategy.
Precisely. Think about Edison again. Famously failed 10,000 times with the light bulb. He didn't see those as failures of his goal. He saw them as failures of a specific plan or approach.
Right.
So the book advises, when defeat comes, accept it as a signal that your plans are not sound, rebuild those plans, and set sail once more. The key is unwavering commitment to the definite goal, but total flexibility with the plan to get there. It's all about learning, adapting, iterating.
Which naturally brings us to step 7, decision.
The enemy of procrastination.
Exactly. The book identifies procrastination, that habit of putting things off, as one of the most common causes of failure, especially when it comes to making money. And decision is the absolute antidote. But why is quick, firm decision-making so important beyond just, getting stuff done?
Hill is really emphatic about this. The leaders in every walk of life decide quickly and firmly. That is the major reason why they are leaders. He argues the world just kind of makes way, opens doors for people who know where he's going, people whose words and actions just radiate that definiteness of purpose. Indecision, on the other hand, it signals weakness, a lack of clarity that actually repels opportunity. It's like the universe responds better to clarity than to maybes.
It's interesting he frames it as a habit, too.
Yeah, indecision is a habit which usually begins in youth. Often, he argues, because educational systems sometimes lack that focus on definiteness of purpose.
Ah.
So many people end up stuck in jobs or situations not because of external limits, but because of an internal lack of the definiteness of decision to plan a definite position for themselves. It comes back to that internal choice to define your own path.
And he uses a huge historical example, the American Revolution.
Right. Frames it not just as a war, but as this massive triumph of definite decisions made by determined people.
Like John Hancock and Samuel Adams after the Boston riot.
Exactly. They didn't just react. They made the conscious, incredibly bold decision to eject all British soldiers from Boston. And you have to ask, what amazing courage does a decision like that with such huge risks actually require?
Immense courage, treason, basically.
Totally. The book stresses it was the decision of these two men that called for faith and courage because it was incredibly dangerous. And that single decision set off a chain reaction of the Continental Congress, the Declaration of Independence, where 56 men consciously signed their names, each one staking his own life upon his decision to write his name.
Signing their death warrants, potentially.
Absolutely. And Hill argues this nation was literally born of a decision created by a mastermind consisting of 56 men. Their collective, unwavering decision, their unified will that ensured the success of Washington's armies because that spirit, that conviction was in the heart of every soldier. They acted like this spiritual power which recognizes no such thing as failure. It's an incredible example of how a united, definite decision backed by massive courage can literally create a new reality.
So, okay, you've made the decision, you've got your organized plan. What's often the biggest hurdle then in actually seeing it through?
The big one. Persistence.
Yeah. Beyond just deciding, you need relentless persistence. It's absolutely essential, non-negotiable for any real success. The book says it plainly. Without persistence, you will be defeated, even before you start. With persistence, you will win.
Black and white.
Pretty much.
Huh.
And it makes a crucial link back to desire. Weak desires lead to weak results. If your desire isn't really burning hot, your persistence is going to fizzle out. You have to consciously build a stronger fire under your desires to keep that persistence fueled.
There's that powerful story of R.U. Darby that illustrates this so well.
The 3 feet from gold guy.
It's him. Learned this incredibly painful lesson early on when he quit digging for gold, literally just before hitting the main vein.
Agonized.
Totally.
Yeah.
But he applied that brutal lesson later in life insurance sales. He said, every time a prospect tried to bow me out, I said to myself, I've got to make this sale. The better portion of all sales I have made were made after people had said no.
Wow.
He credited his stickability entirely to that early failure. That experience was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to keep on keeping on no matter how hard the going may be, a lesson I needed to learn before I could succeed in anything. It's not about being annoying. It's about seeing no as just a temporary hurdle, not the end of the road.
Or think about famous artists who embody this, like Fannie Hurst, the writer.
Right, 36 rejections.
36 rejection slips before she finally broke through. Or Kate Smith, the singer. Sang for years without money and without price, facing constant dismissal. Until finally, Broadway basically threw up its hands and said, oh, what's the use? You don't know when you're whipped, so name your price and go to work.
Persistence literally wore them down.
Exactly. Both women just exemplify how persistence conquered the Great White Way against ridiculous odds. Sustained effort can break down even the toughest resistance.
And the book actually gives 4 steps for systematically developing persistence, making it a character trait. First, definite purpose backed by burning desire. We keep coming back to that.
Foundational.
Second, a definite plan put into continuous action, not just bursts here and there. Third, keeping your mind rigorously closed off to negative influences, especially from people who might discourage you.
Protect your mindset.
Absolutely. And fourth, having that mastermind alliance to support and strengthen your resolve. And it notes very clearly, persistence is the direct result of habit. It's not something you're born with. It's cultivated through discipline, focus, and repetition.
Hill even uses the dramatic story of King Edward VIII giving up the British throne for Wallace Simpson as an example of persistence and courage for a definite desire.
That's a bold example.
It is. But the book suggests all of us can profit by following their example in our own search for that which we demand of life. Recognizing that his decision, while hugely controversial, was driven by his deep personal desire for fulfillment. It highlights that persistence means holding fast to what truly matters to you, regardless of external judgment.
So what gives persistence this almost unstoppable power? The book implies it's not just sheer human willpower. It points to figures like Muhammad.
Right, ridiculed, banished, 10 years seemingly getting nowhere.
And then, in just another 10 years, he becomes dictator of all Arabia, head of a major world religion. His career never made sense through a conventional lens unless you factor in persistence, concentration of effort, and definiteness of purpose as these huge, intangible driving forces. It's like tapping into some universal energy through sheer focus and sticking power.
That idea of concentrated effort and collective will flows right into the power of the mastermind. The book defines power itself as organized knowledge and says it's not just needed to get money, but critically, it's necessary for the retention of money after it has been accumulated. You need organized power to hold on to what you gain.
And the mastermind principle, as Hill lays it out, really has 2 distinct but interwoven aspects. One is purely economic. Strategically surrounding yourself with the best advice, counsel, cooperation from a group working in perfect harmony.
Like Andrew Carnegie's team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Carnegie credited his immense fortune directly to his mastermind staff of 50 men. That's the economic side. But the second aspect is more profound, almost psychic. When a group of individual brains are coordinated and function in harmony, the increased energy created through that alliance becomes available to every individual brain in the group.
So it's more than just sharing ideas.
Much more. It's as if the collective mental energy creates this kind of supermind, an amplified intelligence that gives everyone involved better insights, more creativity, superior problem solving. It becomes truly synergistic, more than the sum of its parts.
Think about Henry Ford again. We keep coming back to him.
He's a perfect case study for these principles.
His biggest leaps forward, his most amazing achievements, they really took off when he formed these deep synergistic connections with other brilliant minds. Edison, Harvey Firestone, John Burroughs, Luther Burbank.
Right. It wasn't just his genius in isolation.
No, it was the compounded, amplified power of these minds working in harmony. He clearly understood the value of that intellectual and spiritual alliance.
Absolutely. The book states men take on the nature and the habits and the power of thought of those with whom they associate in a spirit of sympathy and harmony. Ford, despite his background, whipped poverty, illiteracy, and ignorance by allying himself with great minds whose vibrations of thought he absorbed into his own mind. He literally boosted his own capacity through his chosen associations. It just underscores how crucial your inner circle is.
And what's really mind-blowing is how the text applies this mastermind idea on a massive national scale, talking about Gandhi's miracle.
Yeah, suggesting Gandhi somehow induced over 200 million people to coordinate with mind and body in a spirit of harmony for a definite purpose, India's independence.
That's coordination on an unbelievable scale.
And Hill throws in this challenging little observation. If you doubt that this is a miracle, try to induce any two people to cooperate in a spirit of harmony for any length of time.
Good point. It's hard enough sometimes.
Right. It's just this profound testament to the sheer power of coordinated thought and collective will. The mastermind principle playing out on a colossal level. It shows how a unified vision really can move mountains or even nations.
Okay, next up, we dive into the subconscious mind. The book positions this as way more than just like a memory bank. Hill calls it the medium of communication between the thinking mind of man and infinite intelligence. That sounds pretty profound, almost mystical again.
It does, but it's central to his practical system. The key insight here is that your subconscious mind is always working, voluntarily, whether you make any effort to influence it or not.
So it's always on, always receiving.
Always on, always processing. Which means, Hill argues, thoughts of fear and poverty and all negative thoughts serve as stimuli to your subconscious mind, unless you master these impulses and give it more desirable food. You are its primary programmer, whether you realize it or not. If you don't consciously direct it, it just absorbs whatever's floating around in your head, good or bad.
And it's strongly emphasized that the subconscious is more susceptible to influence by impulses of thought mixed with feeling or emotion.
Critically important.
In fact, it says, only emotionalized thoughts have any occasional influence upon the subconscious mind. This is exactly why emotion is so vital for autosuggestion and faith to work. It's the activation switch. Without that feeling, the thoughts just lie dormant.
So the book details the 7 major positive emotions you should actively cultivate: desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, and hope.
Okay, the good stuff.
And conversely, the 7 major negative emotions to actively avoid and eliminate: fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, and anger.
The destructive ones.
Right. And the fundamental truth, Hill says, is positive and negative emotions cannot occupy the mind at the same time. One or the other must dominate. It is your responsibility to make sure that positive emotions constitute the dominating influence of your mind.
So you have to choose which ones rule your inner world.
Exactly. And the good news is, the law of habit will come to your aid in building this positive mental state through consistent practice.
And on a slightly more spiritual note, the book touches on the science of prayer, saying there are no toll gates between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence.
An open line, basically.
Yeah, suggesting this direct communication, this connection to higher wisdom, costs nothing except patience, faith, persistence, understanding, and a sincere desire. It implies it's always available if you approach it with genuine intent.
Which leads us naturally to think about the physical hardware for all this thought: the brain.
Right. The book describes it as this intricate machinery, just a biological marvel with billions of nerve cells arranged in definite patterns. The numbers are staggering.
Absolutely astronomical. Hill quotes Dr. C. Judson Herrick saying, the number of possible connections between brain cells makes figures like hundreds of millions of light years become insignificant by comparison.
It's almost impossible to comprehend that complexity. So what does Hill suggest is the purpose of such an elaborate system? Beyond just, keeping us breathing.
Well, he finds it inconceivable that such a network should be in existence for the sole purpose of carrying on the physical functions. The implication is profound. This intricate system must also provide means of communication with other intangible forces.
Like what? Other minds? Infinite intelligence?
Perhaps all of the above. The book even mentions those early Duke University experiments by Dr. Rhine on things like telepathy and clairvoyance.
The card-guessing experiments.
Yeah, where subjects could name cards correctly far beyond any statistical chance, not one chance in many a million of their having done their feats by luck or accident.
Mhm.
It's presented as potential evidence for abilities beyond our normal senses.
And what was really weird about those findings was that the distance didn't seem to matter, right?
Exactly. Several hundred miles away worked just as well as in the same room. It wasn't like physical radiation that fades with distance. But interestingly, performance improved when the person was most wide awake and alert. Stimulants helped. Narcotics hindered. It suggests a non-physical connection, facilitated by a sharp, focused mind.
Which brings us to sex transmutation. This is a principle that, as Hill himself notes, is often misunderstood. But he presents it as incredibly powerful creative energy.
Yeah, the term itself can throw people off. It means switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. It's not about suppressing the energy, but consciously redirecting it.
Okay, how does that work?
The book explains that sex desire is the most powerful of human desires, period. And when people are strongly driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. That's the raw power. The crucial point, according to Hill, is when this intense energy is harnessed and redirected along other lines, like into art, science, business, accumulating wealth, it keeps all those powerful attributes, imagination, courage, persistence, but channels them into constructive, creative achievements.
He makes a really strong claim about this too, doesn't he?
He does. There never has been and never will be a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in this driving force of sex. But he clarifies immediately. Man attains to the status of a genius only when and if he stimulates his mind so that it draws upon the forces available through the creative faculty of the imagination. Chief among the stimuli is sex energy. The mere possession of this energy is not sufficient. The energy must be transmuted. It has to be consciously redirected.
And it suggests a reason why many people don't hit their peak success until later in life, like 40s or 50s.
Yeah, he suggests the major reason why the majority of men who succeed do not begin to do so before the age of 40 to 50 is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence in physical expression of the emotion of sex. That creative fuel, which could be building empires or masterpieces, gets diffused elsewhere. It's a call to be mindful of where our most powerful energies are going.
This really gets into what Hill calls the chemistry of the mind.
Exactly. He says the road to genius consists of the development, control, and use of sex, love, and romance as these powerful positive forces. Again, it's about encouraging the positive emotions, eliminating the destructive ones. And he stresses control of the mind through the power of will is not difficult. Control comes from persistence and habit. It's a disciplined practice you build over time.
And the bottom line on this, according to Hill,
No other road to genius than through voluntary self-effort. It's not luck. It's not inheritance. It's cultivated through conscious, sustained inner work.
okay, finally, we reach what the book calls the apex of the philosophy, the sixth sense.
The culmination of everything else.
Yeah. It's described as like a receiving set through which profound ideas, plans, critical thoughts just flash into the mind, those hunches, those inspirations.
Hill admits it defies description if you haven't mastered the other principles, because it's a mixture of both the mental and the spiritual. It's believed to be the point at which the mind of man contacts the universal mind, that huge reservoir of wisdom beyond our individual knowing.
And the promise attached to developing this sixth sense is pretty incredible.
It really is. Through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. It's like having a guardian angel opening the temple of wisdom for you, guiding you with these unseen insights, that gut feeling, that intuitive nudge that helps you navigate life more effectively.
And the author shares his own fascinating method for cultivating this. His imaginary council meetings.
These invisible counselors, yeah.
Right. Holding these nightly mental meetings with historical figures he admired. Emerson, Burbank, Napoleon, Paine, Ford, Edison, Lincoln, Darwin. He wasn't just thinking about them. He was actively engaging with their essence in his mind.
And what's key here is the deliberate use of autosuggestion within that practice. He'd visualize them around a table, then address himself to each member in audible words, asking to take on their specific traits, like Emerson's understanding of nature, Napoleon's leadership, Ford's persistence, Edison's faith, he was trying to impress these qualities deeply onto his own subconscious.
And then came the astounding discovery.
Yeah, that these imaginary figures became apparently real. They weren't just static pictures, they developed personalities, quirks. Lincoln was always late and serious, Burbank and Paine were witty, Napoleon was critical of things. It really blurred the lines between imagination and something deeper.
So much so that he got scared by it.
Exactly. The meetings became so realistic that I became fearful of their consequences and discontinued them for several months. He worried he'd lose track of what was imagination versus reality. But then, he says Lincoln appeared in this vivid dream or experience, telling him to resume his work, finish the philosophy, because the world will soon need your services.
Wow.
And Hill says he now goes to these imaginary counselors for help with every difficult problem. And he implies that maybe figures like Ford and Edison, with their intense focus and close associations, were perhaps implicitly using a similar principle, tapping into a kind of collective genius. It just points to this vast, untapped potential within the human mind.
Okay, we've explored these incredibly powerful principles for achievement, but now it's absolutely vital we turn and face the things that often stop us from actually using them. The book introduces the unholy trio that must be mastered: indecision, doubt, and fear.
The big roadblocks.
Definitely. And it says they're closely related. Where one is found, the other two are close at hand, like a dangerous package deal.
And the causal link is so important to grasp. Indecision is the seedling of fear. It starts small, then indecision crystallizes into doubt, and finally, the two blend and become fear.
So it grows gradually, almost sneakily.
Exactly. It germinates and grows without their presence being observed. By the time you feel the full-blown fear, it's already got deep roots, all starting from that seemingly harmless little seed of just not deciding.
And these fears, they're just paralyzing, aren't they? The book lists this horrifying rundown of their effects.
Yeah, it's brutal. They paralyze the faculty of reason, destroys the faculty of imagination, kills off self-reliance, undermines enthusiasm, discourages initiative, leads to uncertainty of purpose, encourages procrastination, wipes out enthusiasm, and makes self-control an impossibility.
Basically, they sabotage every single positive thing we just talked about. Creates total psychological gridlock.
Completely.
So the book dives deep into the 6 basic fears, breaking down their symptoms so we can actually recognize them in ourselves. First up, maybe the most common one, the fear of poverty.
A big one for many.
The book states with startling clarity there can be no compromise between poverty and riches, and calls this fear the most destructive of the 6 basic fears, and also most difficult to master. Why so difficult?
Well, its origin is traced partly to this man's inherited tendency to prey upon his fellow man economically. This creates a competitive, sometimes scary environment, and poverty itself, the book says, brings real suffering and humility. It impacts your spirit, your self-respect, how others see you.
So the symptoms are probably wide-ranging.
Very. Indifference, indecision, constant worry, being overly cautious, procrastination, lack of self-confidence, no ambition, spending more than you earn, often to fake it, feeling inferior, lacking initiative. It just seeps into everything.
Okay, what's the next fear?
The fear of criticism. This is the one that often stops people from setting really high goals or going after the career they really want. They fear the criticism which may follow if they fail. What will people say?
That's a powerful inhibitor, for sure, the judgment of others.
Huge. Hill even uses his own experience. When Andrew Carnegie first suggested he spend 20 years creating this philosophy, Hill admits his first impulse of thought was fear of what people might say. Such a human reaction.
Yeah, relatable.
Symptoms of this one include being really self-conscious, lacking poise, nervousness, feeling inferior, extravagance, trying to impress, lack of initiative, lack of ambition, having a negative personality, lacking self-control, all stemming from that anxiety about what others think.
Then there's the fear of ill health, which the book links closely with fears of old age and death, like a morbid little trio.
Right. And it makes this stunning claim that maybe 75% of all people who visit physicians are suffering with hypochondria, imaginary illness.
75%? Wow.
Yeah. Meaning the fear of disease often produces the physical symptoms. Suggestion alone, even negative self-talk, can literally make us sick. Symptoms include negative autosuggestion, kind of morbidly enjoying imaginary illnesses, always talking about sickness, constantly trying diets, coddling yourself, intemperance. There's even that wild story of the guy cured of love sickness by a fake remedy, basically. Falling in love again proved the mind's power over the body.
Crazy. Okay, 4th fear.
The fear of loss of love. This one is called the most painful of all the 6 basic fears. plays more havoc with the body and mind, often leads to permanent insanity. That shows how deep that need for connection goes and the terror of losing it.
So where's that come from?
The book traces it partly to historical mating patterns, man's polygamous habit, and this inherited fear of the loss of love with someone, vital to our well-being. Symptoms are intense: jealousy, sometimes violent, constant fault-finding with loved ones, destructive behaviors like gambling or overspending to try and buy or keep love, insomnia, nervousness, bad temper. And Hill notes women are often more susceptible to this one.
Okay. Fifth, fear.
Fear of old age. This one, Hill says, grows mainly from two things: the thought that old age might bring poverty, and these false and cruel teachings about the afterlife, creating fear of the unknown.
It's also tied to losing health, attractiveness, independence.
Exactly. Symptoms include developing an inferiority complex around the age of 40, falsely believing you're slipping or past your prime. But the book insists the opposite is true. Man's most useful years, mentally and spiritually, are those between 40 and 60. It's a call to see midlife as peak time, not decline.
And finally, the fear of death.
The book is very blunt here. This fear is useless. Death will come no matter what anyone may think about it. Worrying about it is just wasted energy.
How does it suggest we reframe it?
By remembering basic physics. Neither matter nor energy can be created nor destroyed. Both can be transformed. So Hill argues life is energy, death is mere transition, a change from one state to another, or if not, it's just a long, eternal, peaceful sleep, which is nothing to be feared.
So symptoms are basically just wasting life thinking about death.
Pretty much. Thinking about dying instead of making the most of life, often because there's no compelling purpose making life feel vibrant. And the best remedy: a burning desire for achievement, backed by useful service to others. A busy, fulfilled person doesn't have time to obsess about dying.
So these six fears, they often blend together into just general worry, right? Fueled by that indecision we talked about.
Exactly. Worry is the state they create, usually triggered by not making firm decisions.
And the antidote, again?
Prompt and firm decision. It's the active defense against that mental paralysis. Hill states powerfully, nothing which life has to offer is worth the price of worry. Decision brings poise, peace of mind, and calmness of thought. It clears the way for happiness and action.
The book also tackles 57 famous alibis. This tendency for people who aren't succeeding to have all these reasons why, these excuses they think are airtight.
Oh yeah, if I only had money, if I had influence, if I wasn't so old young, if I didn't have bad luck, if I lived in a big city, if I could just get started. The list goes on and on.
We all know them, or maybe use them sometimes.
Right. And this is key for self-awareness. A man's alibi is the child of his own imagination. It is human nature to defend one's own brainchild. It's just easier to blame circumstances than to look inward.
But Henry Ford's story just demolishes that "I never had a chance" alibi, doesn't it?
Completely. He had nothing, really. He created an opportunity and backed it with persistence. He didn't wait for chances. The ultimate message is stark. Mind control is the result of self-discipline and habit. You either control your mind or it controls you. There's no neutral ground. Your mind is your servant or your master. You choose.
Okay, we've covered the core principles, we've tackled the major obstacles like fear and alibis. Now let's get really practical. Let's talk about applying this philosophy in the real world, specifically around marketing yourself and finding opportunity.
Yeah, bringing it down to earth.
The book makes this really broad statement. Most great fortunes, wherever they ended up, started with either compensation for personal services or from the sale of ideas.
Right. For most people, that's the starting point on the path to wealth, offering your skills, your time, your creativity.
And then it draws this critical distinction between leaders and followers.
Hill says it's no disgrace to be a follower, but definitely no credit to just stay one. Interestingly, he argues most great leaders actually started out as intelligent followers, people who could follow a leader most efficiently.
So being a good follower is actually training for leadership.
In a way, yes. It allows you to observe, learn, and crucially, acquire valuable knowledge directly from your leader. It's like a strategic apprenticeship, preparing you for your own leadership role later.
The book lists some key major attributes of leadership we should probably think about if we aspire to lead. What are some of those?
Things like unwavering courage based on knowing yourself and your field, absolute self-control, a genuinely pleasing personality people have to want to follow you, a clear willingness to take full responsibility, no buck passing. And this one's huge, the habit of doing more than paid for, going the extra mile consistently. That's flagged as a real mark of future leadership.
And conversely, it warns about 10 major causes of failure in leadership. What should aspiring leaders avoid?
Oh yeah, this list is powerful. Things like being unable to organize details effectively. This is a big one. The expectation of being paid for what they know instead of what they actually do with that knowledge. Fear of competition from their own team members. Disloyalty, either giving or receiving it. And putting too much emphasis on the title or authority instead of earning respect through contribution. The world pays for results, for doing, not just knowing.
The book then points to what it calls fertile fields for new leadership, even back then, seeing opportunity in a changing world.
Yeah, specifically mentioning politics, banking, industry, religion, the professions, journalism. It saw a need for a new era of relationship between leaders and followers. And it even predicted the future relationship between employers and employees would become more like a partnership. Pretty insightful for the 1930s. It shows that leadership needs evolve and new opportunities always arise.
Which leads right into maybe the most practical section, how to get the exact position you desire. This isn't just about finding any job, it's about strategically creating or getting the specific role you really want.
Right, and it gives 5 clear steps. First, decide exactly what job you want, or, importantly, create it if it doesn't exist yet.
Be proactive.
Totally. Second, choose the specific company or even the individual you most want to work for. Third, study them. Understand their policies, their people, their direction, their challenges. Do your homework.
Okay, deep research.
Fourth, through honest self-analysis, know yourself. Figure out what you can offer, what unique advantages, services, ideas can you bring that directly benefit them. And fifth, this is the game changer. Forget about a job. Forget whether or not there is an opening. Forget the usual routine of, have you got a job for me? Concentrate on what you can give.
Wow, that flips the whole script, doesn't it, from asking to offering?
Completely. It shifts the power dynamic. You're not begging for a chance. You're demonstrating indispensable value.
And the book suggests preparing a detailed brief of your qualifications, not just a resume.
Exactly. It's described as a compelling, personalized salesman designed to make first impressions lasting. It should include your education, experience, references, a photo, yes, but crucially, your unwavering confidence in your ability, your confidence in their judgment, your determination, and deep demonstrated knowledge of their specific business needs. The analogy used is powerful. It's not the lawyer who knows the most law, but the one who best prepares his case who wins. It's all about meticulous preparation and presentation of your value.
To really market yourself effectively, the book introduces this memorable QQS formula. What's that stand for?
Quality plus quantity plus the proper spirit of cooperation.
Okay, break that down.
Quality means doing every single part of your service with the absolute highest efficiency and excellence consistently. Quantity means rendering all the service you're capable of and then pushing yourself to do even more, habitually going above and beyond expectations. And spirit refers to your conduct being agreeable, harmonious, inducing cooperation naturally, building positive relationships.
And you need all three.
All three applied as a habit. This formula represents a huge mindset shift. It moves you from being just a go-getter, focused on what you can get, to being a go-giver, focused primarily on selfless contribution, with the understanding that fair compensation will naturally follow sustained value creation.
The book then drops this really profound principle of personal accountability. We are where we are and what we are because of our own conduct.
Oof, that hits hard.
Yeah. This law of cause and effect applies directly to us as individuals, our financial status, our overall life situation. It's a stark, no excuses reminder of personal responsibility for our outcomes.
And to help with that, it provides this incredibly useful tool, these self-analysis test questions.
Right, the really probing ones.
Yeah, designed to help you, the listener, really uncover your own habits, identify hidden weaknesses,
Yeah.
frankly, assess how you make decisions. Questions like, do I complain often? Do I finish what I begin? Do I make deliberate use of auto-suggestion?
Tough questions to ask yourself, honestly.
Definitely. And you're encouraged to ask yourself, but also maybe courageously ask someone you trust for their honest feedback to get a really accurate picture. He'll include this extensive list because, he says, it's needed by anyone who has to start accumulating riches by selling their personal services. It's about building that self-awareness foundation first.
Finally, let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. The opportunities in America that Hill discusses.
Right, shifting focus to the environment.
He reminds readers, especially then during the Depression, that America historically offered freedom of thought and freedom of deed unequaled anywhere in the world.
And he lists this amazing array of freedoms that really underpin opportunity. Freedom of thought, education, religion, politics, choosing your own business, owning property, choosing where to live, who to marry, equal opportunity, freedom to travel.
The whole package.
Yeah, summing it up as the freedom to aim for any station in life for which we have prepared ourselves, even for the presidency. It's a powerful reminder of the potential baked into the system, at least ideally.
And he uses that simple example of getting a cheap breakfast in Times Square to illustrate this abundance.
Right. Grapefruit from Florida, tea from China, bananas from South America, eggs from Utah, sugar from Cuba, butter from New England, all delivered to New York for pennies. It seems simple, but it required this incredible global network.
Which highlights the role of Tenno.
Capital, but not just money. Defined as highly organized, intelligent groups of men who plan ways and means of using money efficiently for the good of the public and profitably to themselves. Try sourcing that breakfast yourself without organized capital. It's practically impossible. Hill argues money without brains always is dangerous. Properly used, it is the most important essential of civilization.
The book also addresses neutrally the criticisms of Wall Street or predatory interests that were common then, as they are sometimes now.
Yeah, it notes this is a capitalistic country. It was developed through the use of capital. Neither riches nor opportunity would be available to us if organized capital had not provided these benefits. It presents capital from the book's perspective as just a necessary foundational element of how the American system operates and generates opportunity.
And it introduces this idea of the law of economics, which it says is more powerful than politics.
Right. A law that supposedly keeps an accurate account of the transactions of every human being engaged in the business of trying to get without giving. It warns that trying to take riches away by organized force, instead of giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, will ultimately fail against this impartial economic law. It really emphasizes that lasting success has to come from genuine value exchange.
So the core message here, the challenge to all of us, is pretty clear. Capitalistic America ensures every person the opportunity to render useful service and to collect riches in proportion to the value of the service.
Basically, the opportunity is there if you provide value.
Exactly. So if you want riches, the advice is simple. Choose hunting grounds where game is plentiful. Go where opportunity thrives and focus on providing real, useful service. #outro. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today. An incredible journey through these powerful foundational principles from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
It's dense stuff.
It really is. From that initial spark of burning desire and the absolute necessity of faith, we went through auto-suggestion, specialized knowledge, imagination.
Organized planning, decision, persistence.
Right. The mastermind, the subconscious, the brain, sex transmutation, culminating in that sixth sense and those invisible counselors. It's a whole system for mastering yourself and achieving your goals.
And just as important, we shone a light on the things that stop us, that unholy trio of indecision, doubt, and fear, plus the 6 basic fears and all those famous alibis.
Yeah, the stuff we need to overcome.
Which brings us to a really important personal question for you listening right now. Which of these big ideas, these principles, really resonates with you the most right at this moment in your life? What was the one idea, the one plan, the one suggestion from this whole deep dive that you're going to commit to applying in your own life starting, like today?
Because remember, the real test of this whole philosophy isn't just listening to us talk about it or even reading the book. It's in the doing. The book says your eagerness in following these instructions clearly shows how much or how little you really desire to achieve your goals, whether it's money or something else. This is your call to action. Turn these ideas into real results. We really challenge you to let the concepts in Think and Grow Rich genuinely enhance your life. And honestly, if this has sparked something, we highly, highly recommend you get the book yourself. Study it, underline it, live with it.
So how will you inject that crucial emotion into your desires, make them that burning obsession? How will you make that definite decision and then persist even when you hit those inevitable temporary setbacks?
Yeah.
How will you use that QQS formula, quality, quantity, spirit in your work, focusing on giving value first? And how will you bravely use those self-analysis questions to find and eliminate your own personal alibis? What stands out to you right now is the most significant, actionable insight you can use immediately.
Maybe the ultimate key to unlocking your success, your transformation, is simply making that conscious choice. The choice to control your mind, to focus it rigorously on a definite purpose backed by a definite plan, instead of just letting it drift or letting fears and doubts run the show. That power to shape your own destiny, it really is right there within you.
Just remember that powerful lesson from Henry Ford. Ford has a mind and controls it. The others have minds which they do not try to control. The power to create your reality, achieve your biggest goals, reach your highest potential, it's inside you, waiting for you to claim it with focused thought and consistent action.
Thank you so much for joining us on this really profound deep dive into Think and Grow Rich here on the Plain Books podcast. We sincerely hope this exploration has given you some concrete, usable insights and maybe even ignited a renewed, fiery desire for your own amazing achievements.
And if you found this deep dive valuable, please do follow, subscribe, and maybe share the deep dive with others who you think might benefit from hearing about these timeless, truly transformative principles. We really look forward to having you with us on our next journey into knowledge.